you want to protect yourself, get a double barrel shotgun, have the shells, a 12 gauge shotgun, and I promise you, as I told my wife, we live in an area that's wooded and somewhat secluded. I said, Jill, if there's ever a problem, just walk out on the balcony here or walk out, put that double barrel shotgun and fire 2 blasts outside the house.
Welcome to Sasquatch Talk. My name's Bradley Valentine, once again joined with Troy Miller and Dan Adams. We're the owners of Sasquatch Gun Oil. So today we're going to keep going with that conversation of gun control myths and misconceptions because we really want to hammer home this idea. I mean, obviously we sell a product in the realm of guns, so it's really important. Let's get started with a little bit of an icebreaker. I want to go a different direction. Troy, I'll start with you. As someone who is in that gunsmith realm and someone who sells guns, works with guns, we sell a product called Sasquatch Gun Oil for lubrication and cleaning. I hear this at gun shows, and I know you two both hear this, but people say, oh, I haven't cleaned my gun before, or I don't need to clean my gun, or it's been 20 years since I cleaned my gun, so I don't need your product. Ignore the fact that we sell a gun oil. Why do you need to clean/lubricate your gun?
Well, I mean, it is the life of it, but would you not clean your car or your house at all? If you're using it for 20 years, would you never clean it? 20 years worth of filth built up it's the same thing that happens with guns. You don't clean it, all that carbon buildup starts to build up. It will affect the action. It will make it sluggish.
Sure.
It could affect the accuracy. It's a whole number of things.
Yeah. Okay. Dan, do you want to expand on your opinion on that?
Yeah. I think what it is just like everything else that we're probably going to talk about today. It's a misconception, right?
Sure.
Yeah. People have all kinds of weird hangups and things. Like I work on airplanes, and there's some people that will not wear a uniform or maintenance pants on Friday because they think more things will break.
What? Really?
Yeah, the same with like football players. Can't wash your
gotcha.
whatever.
Like
all year long or whatever, all season long baseball players, like they have all these little rituals that they do to, so that it'll be a better game.
Yeah.
As a people, and I'm not talking like Americans, I'm just talking humans. We develop all these things to do because it's going to produce some type of better outcome.
Right.
But what I will say that people are forgetting is that when you fire a gun, right, as that bullet goes down the barrel, there's some sort of particulate vaporization that happens from the softer metal to the harder metal. So you get deposits of copper and lead. And then as well as when the gunpowder goes off, that's an internal combustion thing that happens.
Right.
Anytime you burn anything, there's a chemical transformation that happens, and you're going to get deposits of stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever those deposits may be, when you have a chemical reaction, you're producing something. You're changing the phase state of whatever you're combusting.
Yeah.
Right. So since the gun is enclosed to produce pressure to accelerate the projectile, it's going to push that stuff to the walls of the firearm and into the chambers and things where the round seats, right? So then that carbon builds up where you need the tolerances to fit tightly so that you can continue to have an accurate firearm.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you this, because I know we've all heard this, like, oh, I haven't cleaned my gun in 10 years or whatever, and it's never jammed. Have you guys ever had an experience like that where, like, you've had a gun that works so flawlessly that you've barely put any maintenance in it and it's never, ever had an issue? Maybe the answer is yes.
Well, I did. It's kind of a longer answer, but when I bought my 1911, I cleaned it right when I got it to clean all the shipping grease off and stuff, preservation grease, and then oiled it, and then I went 250 rounds I just wanted to see how many rounds I could shoot before it would have a failure to feed or failure
Right.
to go into full battery or anything like that. And I made it to 250.
Okay. That's
Which is a
good.
pretty low number comparatively,
That's
but not
very
people,
low.
you know.
So
But what I'm saying is the
Yeah.
tolerances were tight on it, right? It was
Yeah.
a brand new
Mhm.
gun.
Mm-hmm.
So
So-
the only way you're going to get a higher number is if you have looser tolerances.
okay. What about
So
you, Troy?
Yeah, AK-47s are very loose tolerances. You could throw that thing in the mud and it'll run and run and run. May not be the most accurate, but it'll run and run and run. I've heard other people say a similar thing to some of the older Glocks. I've fired 5,000 rounds through it, never had a jam.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't do that with the 1911,
No.
and
Yeah.
ARs they have tight tolerances similar to a 1911. But I've also the materials have gotten so much better on ARs over the years that they are starting to be more reliable than they were in the
Yeah.
70s. But still, the tolerances are so tight. If it's not an AK, if you don't clean it, it will start to gum up. It will start to jam. You'll get all that buildup, and it'll prevent the action from working.
So we can say that when people tell us that, they're probably feeding us some BS, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Here's what I think. Like, if I'm gonna go shooting, let's say it doesn't necessarily jam or malfunction, all that buildup, whether it's carbon, or like it just gumming up, at the very worst, it's gonna make your accuracy like worse, right? Am I right here?
Yeah.
It'll suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean,
the gun will cease to function.
Sure, right. I mean, that's the ultimate bad thing that we don't want to happen is like it just to stop working. But even if it's still technically working, it's working less efficiently. Your shots are probably off, and maybe you're even trying to adjust your sights because you think your sights are off, or like you're like, oh, there's something with the wind today, you
Oh
know?
yeah, people chase the paper all day long.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's like be open-minded, you know, and like clean your stuff and take care of your stuff, especially if it's something like a gun. One, you want it to perform well when you're, you know, using the sport, right? Shooting, hunting, or in a case of an emergency, you don't want to have to deal with a jam, or you don't
The
have
reliability.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's there for sport, it's there for safety. But I like that conversation. We'll go on and let's go more into the ideas of our misconceptions about guns, especially what were you going to say, Dan?
But I was going to say right before we hop off this topic was friction of it operating. You know, if you rub your hands together, they get warm, right? But if you put them underwater and rub them together, if you're not using warm water, but the friction is lessened by the water. So lubricating your firearm after you clean it so that metal on metal contact where all of the friction faces are allows it to operate smoother.
Pretty much like oil in a car engine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah.
That was my last point.
No, I like it. And it's important to understand, especially for gun safety, like as people who we like to go to gun shows, we like to sell a product, we like to advocate that it's okay to have guns. It's good to have these conversations and say, well, cleaning and lubricating your gun is part of the safety and using it effectively. So let's go to that idea of gun shows, because one of my favorite shows of all time, actually my favorite show of all time, is a show called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And
oh boy.
So what happens in one episode is there's 4 characters who split up. 2 are upset about gun control laws because they say they're not strict enough. The other 2 say they're too strict. Well, Dennis and Dee, who say guns are too strict, they go try to buy a gun at a gun store, and they have a background check, and they fail the background check because they have bad behavior or whatever. They have a bad past. So the idea of the episode is like proving misconceptions wrong on both sides. Well,
Yeah.
There's something called the gun show loopholes, which people believe is a real thing where you don't have to go to a local gun store. You go to a gun show. They won't run a background check, and you can just walk out for a gun. Maybe it's more expensive, maybe not. Troy, we'll start with you because you work in this world of you have to do background checks. Where is this gun show loophole wrong?
Kind of depends on the state. So Oregon, for example, requires a background check regardless, even if it is a private party transfer. So that means at gun shows, you'd have to do a background check.
Mm-hmm.
You bring it to an FFL dealer and they run the background check. However, the ATF and the federal law says private party transfers are legal without a background check. So in other states, you can walk into a gun show, buy a gun, and if they're not a licensed dealer, maybe a couple of verbal questions, make sure you're not a criminal. But if you can verify that person isn't a convicted felon, where their gun rights had been taken away, there's nothing wrong with doing a private party transfer. It's no different from, hey, Brad, you got a gun I want. Here's $400.
Yeah, but that's not a gun. That's not a gun show loophole. That's you selling a piece of machinery to another person.
Right, but you can do that at gun
that's not.
shows. You can do that at gun shows.
What you could do that in a Walmart parking lot. That's what I'm saying. Though that's not a gun show loophole. That's called America, the land of the free. Like if I have a thing that I don't want to use anymore, and you want to use it, and I want to sell it to you, and you want to buy it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Your personal choices. Like should I not sell it to you because you drink Diet Pop, and I think Diet Pop is bad? Like.
No, that's ridiculous. That has nothing to do with criminal. No, but that's what I'm saying. Gun shows are no different. There's a lot of people who go to gun shows who get a table to sell the guns that they don't want anymore, and they agree to a price with the customer.
Right.
It's no different whether it's at a Walmart parking lot or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's some of the states that mandate it. Every private party transfer must have a gun background check. So, like in Oregon, Dan, you have that gun that I want. We meet in Walmart parking lot. The state of Oregon says that we would have to go to an FFL dealer and have them run the background check. Some other states don't require that. The ATF doesn't necessarily require that.
All right. Thank you, Troy. And that helps understanding, especially in Oregon. We're in 3 different states, Oregon, Florida, and Colorado. Dan, expand on your point a little bit, right? Like you have something I want. You can pay me some money and I'll take it from you.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like anything that you have, car, if I sell you a car, which let's be honest, is the same amount, if not more deadly than a firearm. Yeah. Because with a firearm, to go buy one, right? Unless you buy it from a person, you have to go through a lot of hoops to buy one. With a car,
simple.
It's really easy to buy a car and use it.
Sure.
Real easy. And it does the same, if not more damage than firearms.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to verify that you have a license. You don't even have to have a driver's license to buy an automobile.
Right. Okay.
You don't have to have one to buy it. But you can do the same amount of damage with it, if not more. So, should we limit folks on what they can sell to each other? Should I not be able to sell knives to a private citizen? Mm-hmm. Because they might go stab somebody? Or let's say they have stabbed somebody in the past, but it was in self-defense. Yeah. Should I not sell them a knife?
Or
because they might defend themselves again?
Right. Or to mandate background checks for that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Or, some sort of extra government oversight to be able to buy that.
Because even if you've had DUI upon DUI, you can still get what's called an SR-22. You've proven through the courts and juries of your peers that you like to not use an automobile correctly, and you can have upwards of 5 DUIs, like fully charged, have your license suspended, still go through a process to get what's called an SR-22, and continue to drive your car to work.
Mm-hmm.
So you're allowed repeated wrongdoings and
Yeah.
still legally get it back, right?
Yeah.
If you have been proven to be a felon, not even involved in a gun crime,
Right.
right? Let's say you did let's say you were speeding and you were going 65 and a 25, and in some states that's counted as reckless endangerment, felony, all kinds of things. You get in trouble for speeding and get a felony charge for speeding that sticks.
I love it.
You can't buy a gun anymore. Like, there's some wild inconsistencies.
Yeah. So, okay, I have U.S. Code Title 18, Chapter 44, Code 922. And
Okay.
let me read this, and we can try to interpret it here a little bit. It shall be unlawful for any person, A, except a licensed importer, licensed manufacturer, or licensed dealer, to engage in the business of importing, manufacturing, or dealing in firearms, or in the course of such a business to ship, transport, or receive any firearm in any interstate or foreign commerce, or a licensed importer, manufacturer, except those to engage in the business of importing, manufacturing ammunition, in course of such business to ship, transport, receive, or any ammunition or interstate commerce. So, I'll move back to you, Troy, really quickly. When I'm reading this code, what is that telling us? Like, because you're saying, I, depending on the state you live in, you could go to my house or whatever and just sell me a gun, right?
Yeah.
So what's the difference between that idea and this U.S. law?
That there was a lot that you just kind of that with
I
that
agree.
U.S. code.
I got lost in the sauce on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah. Can you read it one more time? 'Cause
absolutely.
it seems like there was some, I don't know.
Okay. It shall
go
be
ahead.
unlawful for any person except a licensed importer,
Except.
licensed manufacturer, or licensed dealer to engage in the business of importing, manufacturing, or dealing in firearms. So that's the first part of it, right? The other part is about ammunition and interstate commerce and foreign commerce. So just that part. It's unlawful for anyone except a licensed importer, etc., to engage in business of importing, dealing, and manufacturing.
Except the licensed. That's what I heard. So if
Yeah.
you're not licensed, it's unlawful. If you are licensed, you can import. Like Turkey makes a lot of guns, and these licensed companies import a lot of guns from Turkey.
Yeah.
Some of them are questionable in quality, some of them are not bad.
Yeah.
And that's just an example. There's a lot of people who make guns in their garage. They're licensed dealers, except licensed. So you got to be licensed. You got to go through the hoops, the government bureaucracy and red tape to get licensed. And then when you get licensed, there are elements of protection like the intercommerce transaction. I could go from Oregon into Nevada, cut through California with some non-compliant guns, and because I'm licensed and the final destination I'm going to, they're legal in that final destination. It's an exception in California as long as you're that licensed dealer.
So, okay, here's my thought is like the law is saying that you have to be licensed to deal firearms. Where is that loophole where I can go and just trade a firearm with you, Dan?
I don't think I'm reading through this whole thing. There is no loophole. I'm not saying that people do things all the time, but
based on what we're reading, right? Doesn't it seem like you have to be a licensed dealer to sell a gun?
For profit, for a livelihood. If you're just selling stuff that you want to get rid of,
gotcha.
or or that someone has an interest in and you only have one thing, but you're not bringing more in and doing the background checks and trying to build a life off of, that's one thing. That was that was the one consistency I had heard from the ATF when I had met with them. Is it to support a business, for a livelihood?
Mm-hmm.
If you are building guns and selling it to support your family, to put food on the table, they expect you to be a licensed dealer.
Gotcha.
If you're getting rid of a gun you don't want anymore because you don't like it for whatever reason, and you just sell the one to someone else for an agreed upon price, that's not dealing. That's just getting rid of something you don't want.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, what are you thinking? Because I know you're reading through this and your brain neurons are firing off. What are you thinking?
Like here's what I come back to all the time.
Yeah.
I was trying to read through this time of year can be tough for folks. You know, there's a lot of people that choose to end their life this time of year specifically through multiple means, right? But as far as finding the actual number of things, finding the number of reported deaths that are from this or that, or, you know, like specific categories.
Yeah.
Right. The number of vehicle deaths outweighs the number of gun related deaths by a large margin.
Mm-hmm.
Just in the drunk driving portion.
Sure.
Right. And there's a lot of ones that, like, you have to go multiple links to find what study they cited, and they often cite like multiple sources cite the same study.
Yeah.
So these gun laws, because legalese are such a wild thing to read through, because it's the most specific speak you can think of.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was made to confuse people. A lot of gun law is shrouded in angry people on both sides shouting about it without actually understanding the truth of it.
Yeah.
Right. And nobody's going to go pay a lawyer $50 to have them read them the gun law and summarize it for them.
Right.
Right. But when we think about it, the Second Amendment is there for the people to protect themselves against tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A lot of people say against the government. Well, it's not just the government. It's against tyranny. It's against oppression.
Right.
From an outside source, right? So that one group of peoples cannot oppress another group of peoples. But we know, because of news and things around the world, that people still do that all over the place, you know. But we have all these laws to control the one thing that keeps most large groups of people free.
Yeah.
Because the reason why the peacemaker was called the cult peacemaker was called the peacemaker was because someone who was of smaller stature, let's say 5 foot tall and 125 pounds, could use a peacemaker to defend against a 6'2", 250-pound person, where they have the obvious, reach, size, all of this upper ground advantage, right? And that the whole point of the cult peacemaker was that you couldn't just go brutalize people and take what you wanted. You know, laws were starting to be followed, and the Wild West was a thing because people were just doing stuff until the cult peacemaker came on the scene and like allowed people to defend themselves. Right? But like Americans do, if some is good, more is obviously better. So
sure.
So why don't we follow that with vehicles and like train our kids? Like we homeschool our kids, so whenever we're driving around, we're constantly talking about the right way to drive and what to look out for.
Right.
Because it's a dangerous machine. If everybody approached firearms in the same fashion, and talked about mental health with their kids and talked about, things. There's people do a lot of falling forward through life
Mm-hmm.
without being purposeful with their actions every day. They accidentally get to the end of their day every day.
Sure.
If more
Accidentally.
people were purposeful about their day and about their interaction with everyone, because I believe that everyone was created by God with an intrinsic value, that they're valuable. And if we treated each other in that aspect, I think, vehicle death rates would go down, homicide rates you would see a decline in all
Sure.
of these numbers.
Sure.
It's not that we are not going to have disagreements, but we can lessen the disagreements where we want to end each other's lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's-
I like that perspective, and for our audience, let's do this. Let's throw some gun laws. We'll throw it in the description. Give you some time to read it, interpret for yourself, but the perspectives are good. And Troy, to explain like the difference between a dealer and someone just like, selling a product they already own just to get rid of it is a good clarification to understand when it comes to that myth. But let's keep with this idea of like safety, because I think there's something, and you see this in movies all the time, like and not action films, but like someone's in their house and there's a gun or something, and then there's like the lady who's like, "Ooh, that's bad. Get that gun away from me," or whatever, right? So there's just this idea out there that we're safer without guns. You're safer if you don't have a gun. Sometimes the idea is the bad guy, if you have a gun, the bad guy will go for the gun, and then therefore they have a deadly weapon to kill you with. Where is this idea that you're safer without guns? Is that right? Is that true? Troy, I'll go to you and then we'll go to you, Dan. What do you think, Troy?
mm-hmm.
I think that those people who say that they operate from a position of fear. Guns look scary. They don't know them, right? They're dangerous. They can cause a lot of hurt. Maybe they don't know how to operate them safely, right? So they see them and they're like, "Get that out of my view. Get that out of my house. I don't want anything to do with it."
Right.
And then at the same time, say you have one in the house, like that example you just brought up, and the criminal's starting to go for the gun, and so that's an issue too, where there's someone breaking into the house, the woman goes for the gun, criminal tries to get the gun out of her hand. Well, that's why you have to have a second gun, backups. But like kind of pointing on Dan's point earlier, that's an equalizer. Like it gives a chance for that small petite woman to stand up against that 6'5" male that's got 100 pounds or more on her. Someone who's wanting to do some harm, and that's what the whole point of at least the civilian guns that we have, they're defensive guns. They are
Right.
designed to defend yourselves, and so I believe everyone should have one in their house.
Mm-hmm.
Those who say I don't want them, I don't think they've had any gun training, gun safety. They're not used to having it around them in their life, so they're not familiar with them.
Right.
Dan,
what do you think?
We're just talking about the movies portraying the guns themselves being evil.
No. The idea is that people just feel more comfortable and safer just without guns around. Like, you're safer if there are no guns around.
I'm like oversimplifying it, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, do they feel the same way about sharp kitchen knives and hammers and screwdrivers and
sure,
cars?
Yeah.
They drove there in a car in the scene, but for some reason those are glamorized, and I like cars. I think going fast is cool, and race cars are cool, and people die in race cars, but we get so fixated on death without understanding just how precious life really is. So it's easy to use fear to drive and provoke an unlogical based thought process, or illogical based thought process, right? So if I get you to be afraid of the hot stove, you eventually would start to believe that stoves were bad.
Yeah.
But you use them to cook your freaking food, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing happens with adolescents and kids, and the fear can drive you to irrationality, right?
Yep.
The gun laying on the counter cannot hurt anyone.
Yeah.
A person has to utilize a gun to inflict harm on another person.
Even if you have intent.
If that was their intent, yeah. But what I mean is the gun itself is an amoral object.
Yep.
It propels an object at a given rate of speed. That's what it does, right? That's all it does. And it sitting by itself has to be operated by a person.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so they gloss over that real quick. Because if you get down to that, then you have to understand that it's people misusing things.
Mm-hmm.
It's the people doing it, not the gun doing it.
Right.
So have you guys, sorry, Dan, but to kind
No, you're
of
fine.
on that point, have you guys seen, I think it's just about every packaging in the store. It is unlawful to use this product against what it was designed to be used for.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you see it on all different kinds of packaging, and not just guns. Well, it is on guns too. So these manufacturers build these guns, they have the owner's manual, and they make that statement in there. And then for someone to go and take that gun and do some nefarious acts, kind of like what Dan was saying, it's not going to do anything until someone uses it with the intent to do something.
Right.
Some criminals might intend to commit harm. Well, that's not the intent for which the gun was manufactured. And so it literally, when people do that, they're not, I don't know.
I see what you're saying. I get it. Like we have this product and it's not to go around and stick people up and steal their cars or their wallets. Like that's not what it's meant for. It can be used for that, and you can use a lot of things for that process,
Yes, exactly. That's
so
the point. Exactly.
This point, especially with what you're saying, Dan, I don't know. There was this show, I think it was on HBO, called BS by Penn and Teller, where they would go around talking about stupid stuff or things that they think are myths or whatever. And this had been done before, but they had people sign a petition to ban dihydrogen monoxide, because it's a bad chemical that can be in things like acid rain or cause erosion to the earth, and it kills people. And people would sign it, right? So technically, dihydrogen monoxide can kill you. Also, dihydrogen monoxide is H2O, which is water, which you need to live, So you talking about that, Dan, kind of made me think like, okay, and maybe we're oversimplifying it, but yes, if there were no guns, there would be no gun deaths, right? If there were no knives, there would be no knife deaths, Like if we wanted to live completely safe outside of death and the risk of death, we would essentially have no cars, no guns, no knives, no fire.
But then also you
tools.
would die from overexhaustion from getting to your job every day.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to get materials to where they go.
Yeah.
It's
and I think the other side of the perspective is like, but do we have to have thousands of deaths every year, or like kids getting shot up at school? And I think it's a good thing to at least think about. Like,
well, I have a question that relates to this. Let me pose a question to both of you guys.
Okay.
If the gun lobbyists, the anti-gun lobbyists, right? If they got their way and private citizen sales could be no more,
right?
And all of the guns were destroyed for private citizens, and only the police had them, right? do you think that bad guys could still get guns?
Mhm. So you
Because
just
they would just
described,
take them, they would just overpower a cop and take their gun, right?
yeah,
Or
you,
they would just try to get the most effective means, right? But if we had no guns, here's an interesting thing. If you look up one of the leading reasons that we have not had a land invasion on the United States, people should just look that up and see what it is. One of the leading reasons is because of the firearms, the private firearms ownership.
Yeah.
It keeps other countries from being willing to get engaged in a land war,
Mhm.
Right.
land invasion war on our soil because they know they would lose.
Yeah.
Because they cannot get past even the even California, right? One of the highest regulated states of firearms.
Mm-hmm.
They have projected that they couldn't manage more than 10 miles deep.
yeah, that's the coast still.
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
not getting far. Oh,
No.
you just described Australia. They had that buyback program in the 90s where the government came in and bought all the private firearms that citizens owned throughout the country and destroyed them. What they didn't really talk about on the news much was almost immediately the home invasion rates went through the roof and no one had the means to defend themselves.
Yep.
There were a lot more stabbings,
But they're
people
not
getting,
reported as gun crimes, though.
no, no,
They're
Yeah,
reported
there
as
are
home
less gun
invasions.
deaths. Yeah.
but the overall crime did go up afterwards.
Yeah, it skyrocketed.
It skyrocketed, exactly. And so, likewise in Israel, after the Hamas invasion a couple years ago, October 7th,
Mm-hmm.
Israel went from one of the most restrictive gun controlled countries in the Middle East to the least restrictive. They started giving out the guns to everyone,
Yeah.
throughout the country. And now it's a common sight for people to walk around with a gun on their hip or on their back.
Yep.
And it was for self-defense to prevent that kind of an attack from happening again.
I think that's a good perspective because, you know what? I think we can agree that if there were no guns or a 95% reduction in guns, that gun deaths would probably go down. But that doesn't necessarily mean people are safer or there would be less deaths or less crime. It just means the specific means of which it's done is going down. In fact, I think we can agree, like you were saying, Dan, crime probably would go up, or we might see a difference in war, etc., without guns. But yeah, there would. Yeah, if there's no guns, there's no gun deaths. Like that's an obvious fact of life, and I think that's a logical fact. What were you saying, Troy?
I know, I was just laughing. You're right, but there would that correlation would it be a rise in stabbings or knife violence,
Right. Yeah.
which is the issue in the UK right now.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this last week, but the risk of getting stabbed in London is extremely high, and now they're starting to think about like how do we get rid of very sharp knives? Like, do you need a sharp knife
Samurai
in your
swords.
everyday life? Maybe your kitchen knife has a way to protect you from it, and it can only cut fruit, it can't cut people. Like, that's the kind of mentality that you get as you go down and down. Speaking of land invasions, what if UK was invaded? I feel like they wouldn't last too long. What do you think, Dan?
No.
Well, we have a U.S. base there.
Oh.
So
There's a couple, Laken Heath and
yeah.
What's the other one?
Right. So in their that body of water, the channel, the British Channel, is patrolled
Yeah.
crazy amount, right? So it would make news, I think. For sure. Like, yeah, I think that they would be able to advance pretty rapidly.
Right.
But the thing that would happen is we would have to bomb their soil to keep the invasion down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just read an article that they were talking about is the classic Marine is that role in the military antiquated?
What
Right?
role? What role?
The classic Marine infantry division.
Got
Why the Marine Corps even kind
Because
of exists in the first
when
place?
well, when the Marines were first incepted, right, their goal, their mission was um, from water to land invasion tactics and
Hmm.
to secure the
yeah.
decks of all the ships,
Yeah.
right? So when we stopped using land invasion from a water approach as a tactic, they're saying that that role, that traditional Marine infantry role, is antiquated.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's no longer necessary because we're not. When you look at like European nations, the borders that they share,
Yeah.
right? They have, sometimes as many as 8 countries bordering one country.
Right,
So if we
right.
look at this Russian Ukraine war, right? They're battling over a couple of lines, right? But they neighbor it. There's no large body of water dividing them that they need to cross and then land on strategically to get through, right?
Right.
So what this article is proposing is that we're spending, X amount of tax dollars on training and updating a
Equipment.
force for a tactic that's not utilized anymore.
Yeah.
But I propose that if we did away with that,
We would need it.
it's like saying, you know, we don't really use the deadbolt locks on the doors to our house.
Uh-huh.
So rather than upkeeping them, let's just remove them.
Yeah. Huh.
And it's one more safety measure gone. Now, maybe that's me as a service member thinking strategically about, like, with my American thought process of, well, planes are good, so more planes is better. And
Yeah.
guns are good, so more guns is better. And some infantry is good, so more infantry is obviously better because then you have a larger number, right? And at that point, it just becomes a ratio,
Right.
right? Do I want 5-1 or do I want 10-1? Do I want the war to last 30 years or 3 years or no years? Because, defense is the best deterrence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot there.
Sure.
There's a
Mhm.
lot to think through and a lot of things. And the older I get, the more I think about, like, my idea is that, peace would be great. Peace would be very cool. Not having to fight, not having to send my kids off to a war in
Right.
another nation. Um, not possibly having to grieve them being lost through war. And what would the war be over? Would it be because someone invaded someone else's land, or are we going to protect oil wells and, national interest?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I think it's really easy to get lost in the idea of what's good and bad versus practical thought process.
What do you
If we
mean?
think about what the firearms are for,
Mm.
and I say this as I'm looking at a gun itself, like, wh- is it, you can overthink everything, right? But when you strip it down and look at what the baseline is and the intended purpose through the Constitution for firearms for our nation, which is to provide protection or at least a means of resistance against a tyrannical force, let's start there.
Yeah.
And then if you misuse that item, well, then that was your personal choice to misuse that item. And we need to punish the person for the wrongdoing, not punish the object.
or
right?
punish everyone else who has that object because
Yeah, is
one
anyone
person.
suing? Is anyone suing the gasoline company because they
Right.
fueled the Toyota that the dude got drunk and drove?
Or even
You know?
sued Toyota itself because the dude drunk and drove and hurt someone.
Yeah, why don't we sue the aluminum manufacturer of the can
Yeah.
Yeah.
of the beverage that the dude consumed too many of and then made a unwise decision?
Yeah.
But that's the
Or when they
exact situation.
manufacture, we could just pass a law that all vehicles have to have breathalyzers before you use them. You have to, hook your brain up to a phone jack so they don't think your intentions are bad. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I think we're at the point where it's like that's the difference between us and other countries, right? Like, yes, obviously owning a gun and having millions of guns out there means that there's going to be gun risks, gun deaths, etc. But it also means that it's going to mitigate other risks, other deaths. Just
Yeah.
anytime you have a new piece of something, technology, and you used cars a few times, Dan, it's going to cause some sort of friction, some sort of issue with our
Mhm.
being as humanity. It's going to kill us some way or another. And I think that's the
Yes.
difference is like we have to make that choice. Some countries don't make that choice, and some countries aren't where we are, and that's in a bad thing, you know. Um,
Yeah.
we only have a few minutes left, so I want to close this out to like so we don't just sound like some crazy gun nuts. What would your recommendations be for having guns with families, with kids? And you don't have to give like a long process. And I'll start with you, Troy, and
Sure.
then we'll have you close us out, Dan. What are some recommendations you would have to make sure that it's okay to have a gun if you have a family, right? But also we want to be safe about these things. What do you think, Troy?
Yeah. No, it's a training thing. I have a customer buying a couple rifles for his kids for Christmas. They are 5 and 7, I think. So
Yeah.
start them off at a young age, get them comfortable with a gun, but do it in a way that promotes safety, right? And that way, as they get older and they start using more and more guns, they use it in a safety manner, and it percolates into other parts of life. They're safe in other things too, with the knives in the kitchen, with the
Mm-hmm.
cars when they start driving, that type of deal. Get them familiar with it, but promote safety, safety, safety. Like Dan, and I'm sure you've had your guard mount, or when you were doing augmentee and you had to use the weapon, and you had your pre-morning um, safety briefing. They always talked about the gun safeties every single day. And you were an adult, not a 5-year-old kid, and they still talked about it, right? So I would say just safety, safety, safety. Get them and have it visible. Don't let them be fearful of it. Let them get used to seeing them. That's my thoughts.
Gotcha. All right, Dan.
Yeah, um, understanding, right? If you
Yeah.
don't
Hmm.
understand how long it takes to stop a vehicle,
Mhm.
right? When you first start, well, we're teaching, 2 kids to drive. And the biggest thing we talk about is situational awareness
Yeah.
and understanding what the thing you're using can do,
Yeah.
you know? So we use that. I mean, people badmouth YouTube, but you can get, a full like lifetime of experience in 3 YouTube videos that, if I was to try to set those up myself, it'd be a month-long process to even think through all of it. And whereas, in 5 minutes, you can have 90 YouTubes to show them like a car slamming into a stopped object, a car slamming into
Yeah.
a moving object, different traffic situations. Again, Hollywood, while it's entertaining, people forget that it's entertainment. And
Yep.
if you watch Fast and the Furious 9 times a day for 10 years, you're going to think that, you can, jump a train,
Hey,
like
he gets hit by the train at the end of the first movie, just so you know.
he does. You're right. But that's what I mean though. Like, uh, if your main source of information, not like if you're constantly ingesting things that don't base you in reality, the way you function will largely change.
Yeah.
So what like homeschooling 3 kids, they all have knives. They all know how to sharpen a knife, how to use a knife correctly, how to store a knife, when to use a knife. You can't be threatening your friend when you're jumping on rocks because he's standing on the rock you want to stand on. You can't pull your pocket knife out and be like, I'll stab you. Like you understanding the consequences of your actions and owning your own actions and being responsible for how you talk to people and how you react to environmental inputs to the world around you,
Yeah.
and training your kids to think through things and to be purposeful with their lives produces adults that then are purposeful with their life,
Mm-hmm.
And so, with what Troy said, training is a huge thing, but in that training, helping them to understand all aspects from,
Mhm.
you know, recoil, noise volume, the direction you're pointing your firearm. Never point a gun at something that you wouldn't intend to end its life.
Right.
Meaning, don't point a gun at your brother or sister or at yourself, because of even if it's not loaded, you
Right.
treat every gun as if it's loaded.
Okay.
You treat everything it points at as if that's something that should be the intended target. That way, you have better uh, muzzle control, meaning where you point the gun. And that then, through training, reduces the probability of accidental injury, right? And then they understand the concept. And then when they talk to their friends can go, oh, that's actually really smart, or I've never heard that,
Sure.
right? And then your kids go out to become a light in the world around them, whether it's sharing Jesus with somebody, showing grace to someone else, or helping them, right? Then you're creating 3 more people that will step into the world and operate hopefully better than you do. And hopefully you're able to get some of your bias out of yourself and allow your kids to see people for the value that they truly are. And I know that kind of went off from a gun thing, but if you think about how people use guns, if you're careless with something that can end someone else's life, you're probably careless with a lot of other things.
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is true.
All right. Well,
So,
Troy, was there something you were gonna say?
No, I was just agreeing with Dan.
Yeah. I think one thing, and Dan, you kind of got into this, and Troy, you even said this, like with training. I think knowledge is really important when we let people just throw stupid stuff at us, like things that aren't true. And last week we talked about like an AR-15 is an assault rifle and all this, and like you can shoot 300 rounds in a minute. Like when we don't actually look this information up ourselves, it becomes more dangerous for us. So I think knowledge is a little bit of power here, and it comes with
yeah.
safety. Is like the more I learn, the safer I can be, the more likely I can be someone responsible to own a gun. But if I just let myself have social anti-gun social media advocates or politicians or the news teach me about these things, well then yeah, guns are dangerous and violent and we should get rid of them from society because that's what everyone told me to think. But if I look it up myself, if I learn myself, I can actually go to this point where it's like, okay, I can start to understand why we have them, what you can do with them, the safety of them, and all that entails with it. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for today. I think we got a lot out there, and we'll have some
Yeah.
good information in our comments and and information about like that law we were looking at, so you can understand it yourself and you can actually do some of the research yourself. But that's all we have today. This is the end of episode 6 of Sasquatch Talk. We'll talk to you later. Adios.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.